this thing going. All right.
We're ready.
All right. On today's episode, we welcome on a very special guest. He is Michael Hamilton. He's Rhode Island Men's Golf Player of the Year. He's a Rhode Island golf amateur as well too. Michael, thanks so much for joining us.
No, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for making the drive down too, all the way from Lincoln.
Yeah, if anything's worth a stogie.
This
is good.
Did you pack a cooler on your way down here?
It's not that bad. It only takes about 50 minutes. I mean, you've done the drive up to Kirkbrae plenty of times, so yeah, it's not. It's really not that bad.
Well, to get here from anywhere is a pain in the ass, and then especially for people that live down here to get to tournaments and stuff, they're always
used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're always everywhere. So now you know how it feels on a weekly basis.
I was gonna say
during the
we've been pretty lucky to not have to travel a ton up there.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is not a big deal at all.
No, I should get a couple strokes on one of the tournaments.
Yeah, for the drive. Yeah. Give you some extra. Well, Mike, we appreciate you joining the show and, being down here and just having a stogie with us. So usually we ask our guests, what are they smoking to start? So what do you have right now?
So I actually tried this, what's the first name on it? I know it's a Fat Betty or whatever it is.
Fat Bottom.
Is it
Yeah,
acid?
Fat Bottom Betty. What's that?
An acid, right, I think, or a Drew Estate?
I don't know. I don't know a ton about cigars. I do know that. So my dad's a big cigar smoker. He's a member up at a club in Johnston. There's a cigar bar up there, so he's there all the time. He lives in Johnston. And actually, we went on Christmas Eve and we were smoking a few stogies, and this is one I really like. So.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Go with what you like.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
now I'm starting to get back into smoking cigars. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but, occasionally it doesn't hurt. So it's, I enjoy it.
What do you got, Jeff?
I switched it up today because I think the past two episodes I was doing the Christoph kick. So I have a Perdomo Reserve, the 10th anniversary champagne. So
All right,
it's
very
pretty good. Yeah, switched it up this
That's
time.
awesome.
Yeah.
I got a Sweet Jane. I think it's from Sturgis. That's a brand. I don't know, pretty light. It's very nice, actually.
Nice.
So.
That's awesome. I'm just gonna take 1 minute. I make sure I hit record, but I'm getting I just had a nervous moment. All right, we're fine.
All right,
Sorry,
good.
yeah. So I can cut that
good.
part. Yeah. I just got had a moment where I was like, shit, did I hit record? All right, well, Mike. So want to get into the first thing. Congratulations on winning Rhode Island Men's Golf Player of the Year. What would it feel like, to win that award and everything?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, Austin knows this because we kind of fight in the standings all year long. It's a long, kind of drawn out process just because we have these really quick, spots in the schedule where we play a lot of golf, and then you take a break, and then you take a look back, and you're like, wait a second, what do I need to do to be on the tri-state team, or what do I need to do to win Player of the Year, or whatever. So, every year I know for myself, and I'm sure for Austin as well, is making the tri-state team is a big deal. I know Austin's made both Rhode Island and Connecticut, and they've been fighting over him at times. But that's always one of the coolest tournaments to play in. And it wasn't until when I won the stroke play, I was like, wait a second, I'm in really good shape. And it's funny because I think probably four or five of the last winners have won the state am, which I didn't win. I lost to Kevin Blazer. So it was interesting because you start to do the math and you're like, wait a second, there's really only one event left. So going into the mid-am at Triggs, kind of had a good idea, which actually kind of added a lot of pressure because there's definitely something I would always strive to do is win Player of the Year, but it's really hard to do. So, and having played for so many years in the Rhode Island Golf Association, it was cool to see it happen just because I know how hard it really is to do. So, it was really cool.
That's awesome. Do they do some kind of award ceremony for it? How does it happen? How do you get notified that you won? How does that work out?
So during COVID or before COVID, they used to do a Rhode Island awards dinner type thing.
Yeah.
Where they kind of announce Junior Player of the Year, Women's Player of the Year, Men's Player of the Year, and then the tournament winners throughout the year. This year they did it for the first time, I think, since 2019 because of COVID the last 2 years. So it was pretty cool because they honored some people from prior years as well, which was really neat to see because those people deserve some credit. Obviously, just because you couldn't do it the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So that was really neat. And then, yeah, that's basically it. So it was pretty neat
That's
to
cool.
see it come to life this year.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, from a competitor standpoint, I think it was, from my perspective, we play a lot in tournaments, and it was very cool to see how well you played throughout the year. And the first tournament of the year, the Burke, I remember we both didn't play well
No.
after the first round, and Mike's like, you know what, it's a long year, this is just the beginning. And then to see it unfold for you, and for you to make it to the finals, and then win the stroke play, and then you came in fourth in the mid-am, I think, or
Yeah,
something like that, to actually capture the player of the year, which was awesome. And I think I played with you in everything but the am, so
Yeah,
it
pretty
was
much.
super cool to see. You played unbelievable, so
No, thanks.
congratulations, and
That's awesome.
hopefully we can battle it out this year again.
Yeah. No, it's good. I mean, the competition's as good as it's ever been. I mean, and just having seen like how some of the other states are, they rely so much on like junior golfers and the college kids. And what's unique about Rhode Island is we have essentially it's all mid-ams, which
Yeah.
is guys that are over 25, which some people would say it's a discount to the talent here, but I totally disagree. I think you see it in the guys that go play in national events from Rhode Island, the mid-ams, they do really, really well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Massachusetts has the reputation for having the best players, but they have the best players in the world. I mean, they have the number one amateur in the world right now. We were just talking about it prior to
Yep.
coming on. Michael Thorbjornsen who won the state am, I think, last year, because it was the only time he played in it,
Yeah.
is leading a European tour event right
Oh
now
my
as an
God.
amateur.
That's great.
So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you could compare our competition to Massachusetts, but at the same time, a lot of their guys don't play because they're worried about world rankings
Right.
and all this other stuff, where Rhode Island guys are just beating the hell out of each other all the
Yeah.
time. So, you know, guys like Austin, guys like, Bobby and Tyler and, and just the whole, Blazer, all these guys that play and we're beating each other up over time, I think it's making us all better.
Yeah.
So I think what'll be really cool to see over the next couple of years is there are going to be other guys that win Player of the Year, that win the stroke play, that win the AM, that, 3 or 4 years ago you'd say, oh, he's a good player but not quite there.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a lot of that just because of
Yeah.
the competition that's there. So it's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Speaking of like guys just going all over the country and world, you said you got an event in April coming up that's gonna kick off your year.
So actually, I'm going to be playing in February, a couple weeks, the Gasparilla down in Tampa.
Okay.
Which is turned into probably the biggest mid-am event outside of the U.S. mid-am. There's a couple other ones I think that are, the prestige is there in terms of like the Crump Cup and the Coleman and the Thomas. That's kind of the cocktail tour, so to speak. But
Yeah.
the Gasparilla is ridiculously cool. Played in it 2 years ago. And it's the membership kind of treats it as their own event. They actually have grandstands on the 18th hole with a scoreboard.
That's sick.
They have their membership. I think they have 800 members, which is crazy to
Oh my
begin with.
God.
Yeah.
And they invite the membership and then anyone else who they want to invite out into the golf course to watch. And they have like buckets of jungle juice and beer coolers. So anyone who goes and watches has the incentive to get as lubed up as they want.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. So they do a double shotgun, and the 10th hole is this little short par 4. It's a short golf course actually. No one tears it up because it's so hard. And it's like they set up these like in the pro events, like I don't know what they are, the barriers with the logo of the tournament.
Oh,
There's just
yeah.
people right behind you drinking, like heckling you. And then it just goes silent as you hit, and then they heckle you after you.
That's awesome.
And it's the coolest thing in the world because you kind of feel like you're playing like a pro event.
Yeah.
And it's just a bunch of guys who work for a living that are down here drinking. Like as soon as the event's over, you're going to the bar. It's open bar. It's just awesome.
That sounds awesome.
So it's a good event. And then I was lucky enough to get into the Terracotta in April. And then it'll be kind of the RIGA, USGA stuff, and then the Northeast Am in June. So it'll be a busy year. And I'm getting married in June. So
Oh wow! Congratulations
thanks.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a busy year.
Yeah, that's
Luckily,
a lot.
my fiance / future wife is really, really awesome about golf. We live right near Kirkbride, which is great. But in general, just the tournaments, I mean, she was out there for the stroke play
Yeah.
with her dad and her brother. They're really supportive, so they deserve a big shout out here just because
That's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
I'm
yeah.
able to play.
Yeah,
Some people aren't as lucky as
Yeah,
me, so
yeah.
I'm very happy with that.
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, so you've traveled across the country and played in other events and tournaments and stuff. I mean, what's been your favorite course you played, and what's been a course also too in Rhode Island that you enjoyed?
So I think in terms of some of the recent tournaments I played in, I think the Gasparilla has a really cool course. It's called Palmacia. It's literally in downtown Tampa.
Yeah.
You wouldn't believe it's a golf course. It's the only golf course in the city. It's literally surrounded by houses and neighborhoods, and then there's all the tall buildings in downtown Tampa. It's like a 6,300 yard Donald Ross golf course with turtleback greens. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
No one tears it up. I think the winners the last couple of years have only been a couple under par,
Wow.
just because of how difficult it is. It's a little bit Triggs like, only very firm and very fast.
Gotcha.
So you really got to be precise. In terms of course, I mean, I've been lucky enough. The USAM I played in was at Riviera. I don't think you can beat that place. It's from a golf course standpoint. I think I'm an architect nerd.
Yeah.
It's probably the coolest. It's probably the most uniquely designed golf course you ever see. A lot of people would think it's hilly. Believe it or not, the first hole is downhill and the 18th hole is uphill. Everything else is as flat as can be, and it's really cool how they worked in the golf course there, and the prestige of just everything that's there. It's actually funny. We were joking around when I got in. They give you a locker. They take you through the locker room, and you're seeing guys take me through. He's like, yeah, this is a celebrity, and you're looking at the names like, oh my god. And I'm like, isn't Tom Brady a member here? And now I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Okay.
So
Condolences.
yeah, no
yeah,
kidding.
sorry about
Thanks,
that.
appreciate that. So my brother, who was caddying for me, is a huge Pats fan. He goes, yeah, I think Tom Brady's a member. And the guy goes, I think he is. He goes, but we have so many names here, I can't remember all of them.
Jeez.
Good problem to have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess.
So we walk over to my locker for the week, and there's a name tag on it. It's got my name. And he goes, if you really want to, he goes, start peeling some of the names off of other players. You can see whose locker you have. All right, whatever. Peel off a couple names and don't recognize anything. I peel off mine. It's Tom Brady.
Oh my
No
god.
way.
I'm like, oh god. So when you go play places like that have the membership and you're in the canyon of the golf course, you look up and they're like, oh yeah, that house was worth 80 million. This house was 70 million. It puts a lot of things into perspective. It's really cool.
Yeah.
To get to see those types
Yeah,
of things
yeah.
beyond just the golf course itself. So
That's cool. Did you take any pictures with the locker or anything like
yeah,
that?
I got. I'll have to look in. I don't want to if the phone messed up the microphone at all, but I'll show you them after. It's really cool. I was trying to convince myself to leave a note for him or something like that, but when I finished dead last in the tournament, I was like, I don't really know if this guy needs to know my name. He might think he's cursed now that I had his locker and finished last in the tournament. So yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Speaking of architecture, tell us a little bit about you creating courses on 2K. I know you were
Yeah.
doing that for a little bit. I don't know if you still are, but I know that some of them came out super cool in the area, and kind of how you got into that.
Yeah, I mean, I still do it, but I haven't done any of the real courses recently just because there was some issues with some of the technology behind the scenes in designing the real courses. I would have liked to have done more, but I gotta be honest with you, I got burnt out. After
Yeah.
a while, I was getting DMs, can you do this course? Can you do that course? And I'm like, this is taking up way too much time.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
a nice winter hobby, and then once
Yeah.
golf season started, I was like, I can't do this
Yeah,
anymore.
you know what I'm talking.
You
Yeah.
gotta start charging.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
What I was hoping for is that eventually the technology, and it may happen down the line, which will change it, is that you could use the technology in golf simulators.
Yeah.
So you could actually go to a course and say, hey, I'll design this for you, put it in the game, you pay me $500, now your membership has the ability to play their course
Right.
in the simulator, which I think that's part of the reason why they haven't been able to strike a deal.
Yeah.
They have one back in 2019 that has it, so Kirkbrae's in there, but it was the only course I was able to do.
Yeah.
So hopefully that changes, because I think that'd be really neat, as more clubs start to incorporate the simulators into their membership and
Yeah.
into the clubs, it would be really, really cool. So when I was a kid, like I just sketched golf courses. I was always obsessed with it. I still say to this day I would probably give up golfing to be an architect.
That'd be awesome.
It's just a really niche group of people that do it.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. So I'm glad the technology's there. You know, I still design a couple courses here and there for the game. I think the most recent version is the 2K23.
Yeah.
So it's out there. But it's a lot of time. It's a lot of time and effort to do it. And
Yeah,
like I said, I got burnt out. You know,
Yeah.
doing it like
Yeah.
it was really cool for that stretch of time though. Like I think probably the design that got the notoriety and then it kind of sprung people to figure out what was going on was Metacomet. You know,
Mhm.
obviously a course that's not there anymore. Now people can still go in there and play it, which is really neat.
Yeah.
So again, like it would be really cool if they integrated that technology back into the simulators. To think that, you know, during the winter you could go play Shelter Harbor, or you could
Yeah.
go play
Yeah.
Point Judith, or you could go play Triggs, or you could go play Metacomet.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of whether the club had their own course,
Yeah.
it's just neat to go play Rhode Island courses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people that are, you know, familiar with. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know TrackMan has Shelter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did add it.
Yeah.
So what's the process like? Like, do you draw it out first before you put it into the game and do everything within the game, or do you kind of just jump right in with your own kind of?
So with the
Yeah.
the real designs, or the ones that are existing,
Yeah.
it's a technology called LiDAR, which is actually used for a lot of engineers and a lot of architects out there in other facets, whether it's drainage and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
What it does is it's taking satellite imagery and it's basically mapping out the ground and the topography of the area.
Jeez.
And what it does is some guy out there created this program that was an extension off of the PGA game, and it was taking the imagery from the satellites and mapping it to like a Google Maps type thing,
Yeah.
and it would just throw it right into the game, which
Oh my
was
God.
pretty
That's
incredible.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because and it's actually accurate to 2 centimeters, which
Really?
is
Jeez, that's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
yeah. So when you're talking about like doing greens and stuff, like people are like, how did you get the green? I'm like, I did nothing.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
technology does everything.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, it's not like I'm going in there and
Building
mapping and building out each green. It's not that difficult. In terms of the like designs that I do from scratch, like what I've enjoyed is kind of creating like random plots of land and seeing like, okay, how would I build a golf course on this versus building every hole one by one. I try to build out a landscape that's inspired by something in real life, whether it's a coastline or it's dunes or whatever.
Mhm.
It's very nerdy stuff, I know.
No,
No,
it's
it's
good.
interesting.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah.
And then just try to fit a golf course as realistically as possible into it. Thinking about, okay, well, if this par 4 is 480 yards, but it's playing into a prevailing wind, you know, the next hole, if it's 480 yards, is going to play completely different.
Yeah.
Think about like how we would think about a golf course. Like
Yeah.
when we go play in a tournament, you know, we're thinking about, okay, where's the wind that day?
Mhm.
If there's certain golf courses have good and bad winds, you're thinking about that, thinking
Yeah.
about pin placements. Like I said, very nerdy stuff, but I enjoy it because I'm also looking at it from the perspective of one thing I've always enjoyed is watching how tournaments set up their golf courses for when the
Yeah.
pros play it, and how they think about, okay, if I have a U.S. Open here, what changes would I make to the golf course to make this U.S. Open ready versus, you know, I'm just having the Sony Open here. Or something.
Right.
Yeah.
And you'll see that. I mean, I'm trying to think of what courses have hosted both. I think probably the most recent example would be, what's the name of the course? I'm drawing a blank. It's the one in Charlotte. They hosted the Wells Fargo, and then they hosted the PGA Championship.
Yeah. I'm drawing a blank. Justin Thomas won.
Justin Thomas won, and
Yeah.
the difference between the setup for the PGA Championship was much different than how they did a PGA Tour event. I think they
Yes.
added 300 yards, changed the rough around, changed
Yeah.
obviously the green speeds a little bit. So thinking about those types of things too. Pretty cool.
That's interesting. Like how like that I never like I don't know. You talk to people who play golf and they don't really talk about the architecture, but you just hear people say like it's a beautiful course, but like for you to have that like, you know, for be a golfer, but also to have that interest is very like that's really cool. Is that something that you would want to pursue down the line for sure and try to get into, or?
I mean, I definitely, I've done some freelance stuff for different architects, mostly just 3D renderings, which are really fun, but it takes your creativity out. You're taking someone else's vision
Yeah.
and you're making it a reality for them.
Yeah.
Where what I enjoy is obviously having some freedom to say, okay, I want to design this and do it this way, and this is why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great architects now that, you know, all of their processes are different. Like you were talking about how I look at just creating something from scratch. They're thinking of it in terms of what they want to do and also what the ownership wants to do.
Yeah.
You know, if someone comes in with $100 million and says, hey, I want to build a fantasy land of golf,
Yeah.
which has happened recently in a couple of spots, the architect has some freedoms, but in the end, the guy who's fronting the bill for $100 million says,
Yeah.
I want a drivable par 4. Or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want the course to be 7,800 yards.
Yeah.
I want this course to have 8 sets of tees. You know, and a good example around here is Shelter Harbor. So,
Yeah.
you know, luckily enough, I've gotten pretty close with Dana Fry, who designed Shelter, and he still says it's one of his favorite designs because the owner really wanted to build something that was going to be unique for every single person that stepped out there, whether they're a 25 handicap or a plus 8.
Yeah.
You know, a pro golfer. Excuse me. And, you know, as evidence, I didn't get to play in the AM in 2019, but Jim McKenna, who helps with all of the setups for the RIGA, he goes, I could set up a golf tournament there for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, you can set up holes to play one day as a drivable par 4, the next day as a driver 7 iron.
Jeez.
There's
yeah.
so much
Yeah.
flexibility out there, pin placements, just so many things you can do.
Yeah.
And
It's
when-
golf heaven over there.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable. And I still, to me, Shelter. I didn't get it. I should have answered the last question with Rhode Island. Shelter Harbor to me is maybe my favorite golf course in the country.
Really?
Yeah, I mean it's just the way it's got so much flexibility, the way the facilities are.
Par 3 course.
I mean,
the
it's just
range,
unbelievable.
The sunset when you hit it right, like
There's
hit it-
nothing missing from that place.
I don't think so.
It's
either.
golf heaven.
I try and tell people that all the time. I do not think that if there was one place I could be a member, it'd be there. And I know that the season's
In a heartbeat.
short, but like you go play some Florida courses, and nothing against like the Floridian or anything, but they just do not match up. There's never a blade of grass out of place at Shelter.
Really?
It's unbelievable. And
Jeez, I gotta get
yeah,
out
I
Yeah.
would totally agree with you. It's,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
And what's cool too for Rhode Island in particular, like you have this blend of old classic courses like Wannamoisett, Newport,
Yeah.
and, you know, Point Judith and whatnot, and then you go play Shelter. And I get that there are people that prefer a Newport over a Shelter, but Newport Country Club, as good as it is, there's limitations that Shelter just doesn't have.
Yeah.
And you know, part of its land, you know, obviously Shelter has a ton of land. It's
Yeah.
a huge golf course.
Mhm.
But you know, that's kind of my preference, is that new style, you know, the ability again to like play the golf course a ton of different ways. Newport, you play it unintentionally different because one day you play one into the wind
Yeah.
and it's a really good par 5. The next day it's a driver sand wedge because it's
Yeah.
downwind.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the defense and the uniqueness of the golf course. Whereas Shelter, I mean, you could play different tee set every day and different pins, and it's just it's
Yeah,
crazy.
It's
Yeah,
always a
That's
test.
awesome.
Yeah.
Always a test.
Yeah.
I'm missing out. I missed out on that. I think like what did Wesley High School play there like every Friday
Yeah.
or something. I missed out. Like
Yeah.
as soon as I graduated, I felt like they cut that deal. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna play at Shelter Harbor. I'm like,
Yeah,
great,
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
You guys waited until after I was done. So
I know. I got to play it in high school, and now that I'm coaching with them, I get to play it now too. So
Oh,
it's been good.
It's so good.
How do I work myself as an
Yeah.
assistant coach?
Also, also
figure
one of the
yeah, yeah.
also one of the top 5 locker rooms I've ever been in.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Everything from
It's
the
so
snacks to the.
Oh, it's so
It's
good.
just
And like you said, the par 3 course is so underrated. We hosted a tournament there in college, so I got to play there in, like, we did it in the fall, so we had access to the place for like 2 weeks leading up, and we'd all go to the par 3 course.
Yeah.
You get
Oh my
like,
God,
bring
money
like 4 or
games.
5 clubs, and you're just walking around for hours,
Yeah.
because it's so good.
yeah. Just keep going around and around
Yeah.
and around 9 holes.
Jeez,
It's awesome.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. I'm jealous. I want to ask too, Mike, because you and Austin have, I think we talked a little bit. You guys were paired up, you know, on the stroke play, and when you guys were playing with each other. I mean, Do you guys have any good stories to share about playing with each other, or just like how you guys met, or like something like that? Because it seems like you guys have gotten, like I think Mike said, you guys gotten close over time and stuff. And like, what's it been like to play with each other?
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. I mean, it's funny because we do have a common connection, which helped kind of spring a little bit of the relationship.
Yes.
So we're both. He played for Bob Walsh at Rick basketball, and you know, I've become friends with Bob through Kirkbrey, and then stayed friends still to this day. And you know, we've played so many times together. It's like I can't even remember when the first time it was that we played together. But you know, I was living down in Florida, and you know, I'd still follow the Rhode Island golf when I was down there, and I kept seeing this name Austin Silly, and everyone's like, "Yeah, he played college basketball," and I'm like, and I talked to Bob, and he's like, "Yeah, this kid's a competitor. He's had nothing but good things to say." And I kept seeing him improve, and then when I got back, he was literally one of the first competitors that you're going up against in the Rhode Island scene. And then we kept getting paired together and just kind of became close, which was really cool because one of the unique things about Rhode Island golf compared to the other associations is you're bound to play with a lot of the same guys.
Yeah.
See the same guys in contention, and it's nice because you become close with them versus when I was living in Florida, you know, you play State Am, it's 5 hours away. You don't know anyone.
Yeah.
You know, you're not creating those relationships that you create here.
Yeah.
So we have a really good, you know, set of guys that are playing in the tournaments, and obviously Austin being one of them. And again, like I was saying before, us being so competitive, we're competitive on the course, but off the course, we all want to see each other succeed. I think that's one of the coolest things.
That's cool.
Is, you know, whenever Austin's in contention, I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm in contention, I'm sure he's rooting for me.
Right.
When we go up against each other, it just happens to be. But a couple of things that stood out to me last summer is like Austin and I were in the final group of the stroke play. Had a couple bad holes, but he played great for 34 holes of that day.
Yeah.
And you add up the scores at the end, and I'm lucky enough to win. And he was nothing but a gentleman to me after, the weeks after. You know, we're always texting each other, encouraging each other, all the guys. We're genuinely happy to see someone else win.
That's
like,
awesome.
I want to see Austin win an event next year. So, you know, off the course too, we've become close, you know, like, and it really is like a good way beyond just the competitive nature. It's like you're creating friendships and, you know, business relationships and all kinds of things through these tournaments. So
That's
it really
awesome.
is cool.
Yeah, I am so fortunate to be able to be a part of it. I think it's been super eye-opening for me the past 7 years. Like, I never imagined myself being in the position that I'm in order to meet these people and play competitively against them, but also, like, right when the final putt drops, it changes. The whole demeanor changes where, it's just an awesome camaraderie between everyone. I think, I want to say we got introduced through Tommy because he was one of the first people that I ever played in an RGA event with, and if you guys don't know Tommy, he's just a bundle of joy. So,
He is.
And,
He's the
and
best.
They're members at Kirkbrey, which I honestly wish I lived a little closer because the membership
We do too.
is
We wish you were there.
completely awesome. You
Yeah.
know, like there's always a game to be played. I go up there a couple times a year if I can in the summer just to go and play and be competitive outside of an actual tournament, and it's just a great membership, and I enjoy being around you guys and trying to be the best that I possibly can. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Tommy too because, and shout out to him, he'll be having a kid this week or next week. It's coming. So his world's about to change. But like Tommy's the guy who taught me to be a gentleman, taught me to be a competitor. He's been kind of the driving force, unintentionally or intentionally, whatever you want to say, to me taking the next step. Like, seeing his successes made me want to be better, made me want to handle myself differently. So, you know, he's a good guy to have as a role model
Yeah.
and a competitor, because we say it all the time, like, without, again, similar to the RIGA, without us beating up each other at Kirkbrey, we don't have success at the state level. You don't beat each other up at the state level to then have success at the national level. Like, these are steps. You're not going to just
Right.
step on the scene and just win tournaments. And I
Yeah.
think, unfortunately, there's bunch of younger guys that have the mentality that's just going to step on the scene and just win.
Right.
That's not how it works. I mean,
No.
I'm 33. It took me until I was 31 to win anything. I was a bad to average college golfer, and then it took me meeting someone like Tommy who's had the success and seeing how humble he is with it to then take the next step.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the process of us all teaching each other. I mean, just look at Kevin's a good example, Blazer. I mean, he's been playing stuff
Yeah.
forever, and it just all of a sudden he broke through, and a lot of it is because you get beat up enough times, you learn throughout the
Yeah.
process. You're not going to just
Yeah.
step on the scene and just win.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're all lucky to have each other, and like I said, that's a benefit of everyone in Rhode Island being close because it's a small state. Just
Right.
unintentionally, that's just how it works.
Yeah.
So,
It's also from like my perspective. I'm the young guy in the bunch.
yeah.
You know, so I get to pick everyone's brain, right? So
Yeah.
I personally I see and watch Mike because and how he handles himself in tournaments because we play so much together. But at the beginning it was with Tommy, and I created a great relationship with him, so I can go to him and talk with him. Same with Jamie. I've gotten super close with Blazer now, so there's so many different guys that you can talk to understand their process through everything, and then take what you can use and apply it to your own game and your own preparation and how you deal with certain situations, and it's all a culmination of everyone else's opinions and everyone else's successes and ways that they do things, which is all. You can't ask for a better way to grow, I don't think.
Yeah. I think that's like a cool like the way the way you've been saying it, Mike, is like the two like being such a small state, but you guys all know each other and you guys have like a close relationship, but you also beat the hell out of each other. Seems
yeah.
like what it sounds like almost. I mean, like compared to like kind of like in a basketball sense, almost like the Big East. Like you guys
Yeah.
beat
Yeah,
beat
it
the
is,
hell out
yeah.
of each other, and like but like you know some guys like whoever like it's a true test to like each other's like opponent, like you know who you play
Yeah.
against and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like at that macro level, when you
Yeah.
think about it, before the Big East season starts, all the Big East teams are rooting for each other
Right.
because they want to see those teams be successful. That way, when the Big East starts,
Yeah.
you have more to play for. There's more
Yep.
tournament teams. Same thing when the NCAA tournament starts. Unless you're playing one of the Big East teams, or it's UConn, because no one likes UConn, then, you know, you're rooting for those teams to be successful. You know
Right.
what I mean? So it is a similar vibe, and I think I give credit to Austin and basically all of the guys in RIJ. They're all willing to pick each other's brains. The ego isn't there to say, no, I'm better than that guy. Why would I want to hear what he has to say or where his experiences
right.
are? And that's where Tommy is the best, because Tommy won't talk to you about things unless you approach him about it. But
Yeah.
when you approach him, he is the best guy on the planet.
That's awesome.
And he's super insightful. He has a lot of experiences outside of golf too
Yeah.
that will humble you and make you think about life a little bit differently. And that's important too. We're
Yeah.
all coming from different, aspects of life, all different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Everyone just assumes every golfer out there comes from with a silver spoon in their mouth.
Yeah.
That is not the case.
Yeah.
No.
And, because of that, there's a lot to be learned. So if you're willing to learn, you're willing to talk, you will get something out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's part of the process. There's always processes to everything, and
Yeah.
golf is. I mean, you're gonna lose way more than you win in golf, regardless. So
Yeah.
you better learn from it, or you're not gonna ever progress. Or proceed to do anything within the game. So
I agree.
it's just part of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, it's cool. I like that. It's kind of there's something unique about Rhode Island, and I think it goes for other sports too. And I found out like in the basketball community with like Roy Runback, a lot of the coaches and a lot of the players, they're all super close with each
Yeah.
other, and a lot of the coaches like lean on each other for advice. Either they're
Yeah.
playing someone or they just know each other in the off season. Like it's the same thing. They all root for each other, and the players do too. And to see that, to hear it on the golf community too, it's there's something great about Rhode Island. I think a lot of people don't really get to understand. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're a small state, but I think we benefit in a lot of ways from being a small state, that we can learn from each other. We have better relationships than other people would have.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
My perspective in college was Rhode Island's a shitty little small state.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
just, And now I look at it completely different.
Different. Yeah, same here. Yeah, I wanted to get the hell out of here, but when I could.
Yeah, and I
then-
did. I did get out of here.
Yeah,
And the
same
grass,
here, yeah.
the grass was greener for a couple of years,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
was nice to get some warm weather and everything. But the second I came back to Rhode Island, I was like, yeah, okay, this is home, and it's what you created it too.
Right,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? No one says you have to be friends with your buddies that you were
Right.
friends with when you were 12.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to be learned living here, and there's a lot of people that are great, and the relationships here are stronger than any bonds you're gonna make outside of that
Yeah.
Yeah.
place. So
Yeah.
There's so much networking to do.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that's
tons.
that's
and everyone's willing to help, and I think
Right.
that's the coolest thing about Kirkbrave for me in general, and then also the RIGA is everyone is willing to help each other.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
That's awesome.
yeah.
I want to ask too about the stroke play. I don't know, like winning that tournament and playing with Austin and stuff. Like, what was that like for you to win that and to come out on top? And how that feel?
It was pretty cool. It was unique this year, I think, that obviously we had the year I won it in 2020. It was only 36 holes, so it felt different. I think this time around it felt like I earned a little bit more. And then when you play with Austin, and it was Kevin Silva in the final group, and anyone who doesn't know Kevin Silva, he's played in 2 U.S. Opens, played golf at North Carolina. Like, he's no slouch at all.
Oh, jeez.
And he is a
robot.
super. And a lot of people don't know this about him too. Is he's a super competitor.
Yeah, yeah.
He may not come off that way, but when he's in between the lines, so to speak, that day I think he probably said 5 words. I mean, he was locked in.
Yeah. It was a sight to see.
Yeah.
And he came steamrolling in the
Oh,
second 18.
God.
Which,
Yeah.
it was a long day.
Yeah.
A very
I
long
couldn't
day.
imagine being under the stress that Mike was. I was kind of out of it at the time, but it was a long day, and Kevin he kept coming at him, and
Yeah, and
Mike,
it's his home course.
Mike
Just
played
know.
well,
Really?
held him off.
Yeah, I mean, it was awesome. It was really gratifying just because, like I said, you deal with the guys that I was playing against, with, Austin and then Kevin, and then, one really unique thing that's happened since COVID is they've changed the way they do scoring.
Yeah.
It used to be you hand in this little slip after 9 holes, they'd update the score. So you go into the final 9 holes, you really don't know where you stand. You know where
Right.
you stand against the guys in your group, and
Yeah.
even after 36 holes, you have no clue
Where?
who's making runs and whatnot.
Yeah.
With COVID, and they didn't have scorecards, they switched to Golf Genius, which allowed everyone to put their scores in hole by hole.
Yeah.
You can live look at the leaderboard
Shit.
just like you would on the PGA Tour.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I love watching the scoreboard. I like knowing.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
guys are like, I'm not looking at this. I'm just gonna go play my game. I'm like, I want to know because it's gonna change the way I play certain holes.
Yeah.
Right.
And with Kevin, you're fighting off Kevin. Then all of a sudden, I look, Tyler Cook's like 5 under on the third round. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh god, I gotta worry about him. I said Austin hasn't had a bad hole since 17 of the first round. I'm like, where is everyone? So the fact that I was able to focus for that long and really stay in the moment, because that's the other thing is you
Yeah.
got to stay in the moment. I came out of the moment once, and I
Yeah,
know
I
Austin
was
knows
just gonna
this
say that, yeah.
very well. And it's some force or something kept my ball in bounds on 17 by a foot, and all I could think about was, don't try to do too much. Don't
Right.
stay in the moment again. And somehow ended up holding on to win the tournament. So it was very gratifying because even when things hit the fan,
Yeah.
I was able to just stay in the moment and finish, which is something 5 years ago, no chance. No
Yeah.
chance. So you live and you learn by like what happens, and then sometimes you reap the benefit.
Yep.
And that was one of the cases. So
Well, I'm sure there was many times, like I definitely know that
Yeah.
goes the other way
Yeah.
and it unfolds. That's part of it, So
yeah,
no, it was cool to see you refocus. I was hoping that you could everything worked out in your favor, and luckily it did.
yeah,
and
it was,
you
that was a
played well
stressful,
the last,
stressful couple of minutes.
yeah,
there
the
as I
last
watched
hole and a
that
half
ball.
though, you played super well.
Yeah.
It's actually funny. So I was talking earlier how my fiance, she was there. She actually videotaped. I have that on my phone somewhere too. She videotaped the swing on 17. So 17th hole has train tracks up the left side that are out of bounds. And to be honest with you, there's a way to play away from them.
Yeah.
But it's almost one of those things where there's so much room to the other side that you start to think, well, don't hit it too far that way because now you're going to end up in trouble anyway.
Right. Right.
And I had birdied the hole the first two rounds, literally hitting the ball to I think 6 inches both times, like tap in birdies. So in your head you're like, all right, you got a 2-shot lead, Just do what you've been
Do-
doing.
Yeah,
At the top of my swing, I had a panic attack.
yeah.
And Daphne was videotaping from behind, and there was just enough dark clouds behind the 17th hole. You just watch my ball do this.
Oh.
And I started chasing after it, thinking I'm going to be able to see if it went out of bounds. And I was like, oh my God. And Daphne in the background's like, I don't think he was supposed to do that. And you see it afterwards, and it puts it into perspective, like where her mindset is versus mine.
Yeah.
And luckily, my ball stayed in by a foot, and I was able to get up and down from like 80 yards for par, and that essentially wrapped up the tournament. But that really is the difference between winning and losing. Over 36 holes, one little mind lapse at the top of your golf swing. I had been swinging the club great, and then just one little thing can just send you right off the cliff. It's crazy.
Yeah. I haven't been there in like a major tournament. I've been there with like playing for money.
Yeah.
With, like some guys were like having great. You're like, oh, I'm doing like well, and all of a sudden you just hit a shot, and you're like, oh shit, like there it goes. Like here comes the like I always have like 2 or bad holes where it just unravels. I'm like, oh, there you go, and I'm
That's
like,
how
I
it
just
works.
lost my
Unfortunately,
this
yeah.
hole for
Yeah.
cash. So it's awesome that you were able to come through and win that, and that's cool. I like that. It's kind of cool to have Austin there too to like see as well too. You're gonna have to send me that video. I'll have to put it in there.
That's a real doozy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to relive it, but
Yeah,
the good
I'm okay
memory came out
about
of it.
it, yeah,
so.
I'm okay. I gotta say that was another turning point in golf. Is like when I realized you can't hide from your mistakes. You can't hide from the bad
No,
things.
yeah.
You gotta learn from them. The other thing is like in the past, you make one bad swing and you go, okay, what did I do wrong? And you overanalyze that one thing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I've done it multiple times, and there's been a turning point. Hopefully, I would not do that again. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good. How did you? So I want to kind of take like a further step back and everything. How did you get into golf? Like, what led you? What made you like such a golf fanatic? Like, what got you there?
My grandparents actually, they were like very, very casual golfers when I grew up, and they took me one day to the range, and the rest is history. I don't know why I kind of became obsessed with it. Neither one of my parents really play.
Yep.
My grandparents, like I said, very, very casually played. My grandfather was at best a 25 handicap. My grandmother about a 25 to 30 handicap, and they just enjoyed being out there.
Yep.
And then I just became obsessed. I think what drew me to the game the most was the architecture side. I became obsessed with that. And then I mean, I'm sure Austin would probably agree, is Tiger Woods. I mean, you're growing up
Yeah.
in a time where, and I still laugh at this, when I was in high school, I played high school golf. I gave up baseball to play golf, and everyone just laughs at you. Now, all those same people want to play golf with me, or want to play golf in general because they've, seen what the game is.
Yeah. Exactly.
I was just lucky enough to enjoy it and discover it, I guess, when I was younger.
Yeah.
But if it wasn't for Tiger Woods, I don't know if I would ever play, just because he made the sport mainstream, made it popular.
Yeah.
I mean, there were other guys, obviously. You can't take away things from the legends like Jack and Arnie and those guys, but Tiger made golf cool.
Yeah.
So it was something, you watch him play, and you're like, I want to be him.
Yeah.
None of us are him, or will ever be him.
No.
But that's kind of what got me going into it, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think more generalized, like, it makes the sport more fun. Beforehand, I feel like it was more of like a stuffy, like, country club type deal, where I think with him and now seeing everyone and their mother trying to play, I think it makes it a cool sport to play, and that's actually like the stigma that I don't like most about the game, is that it needs to be so serious, it needs to be so like hoity-toity in a way. Like, that's not fun for the majority of the people that play.
Right.
So I'm glad that it's starting, and it started, and it's continuing to be a fun sport for people that go out and just play with their buddies and not make it so serious all the time.
Right. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, because you don't, with anything in life, you don't want to make it intimidating for somebody else to just walk in.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the thing that Tiger changed for the game, was instead of it being intimidating to go show up at a golf course with, clubs in your hand that you never used, he made it something that was open to everyone, and that people were willing to try.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's probably something he doesn't get enough credit for. It was
Absolutely.
unintentional, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't change the fact that he changed everything.
Yeah.
And now the guys are doing a really good job kind of carrying on his legacy. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And I think that's a great thing. I mean, you look at the professional golfers now, they're willing to do podcasts, they're willing to do more social media stuff, they're
Yeah.
willing to, meet with the press and meet with, kids that are playing the game. That was never like that.
Yeah,
and you
no.
go back and look at the old days, it just wasn't like that.
No.
Yeah.
Golf was a niche thing, and now it's not.
Right.
So, I mean, that's really good.
Tiger was like, because we're around the same age, so I remember like watching Tiger on TV. Like it was like an event. Like my dad
yeah.
and I would just sit down and be like, we gotta watch Tiger. But
Yeah.
like he was Jordan of golf. He was the Michael Jordan of golf. Where you're
Yeah.
like, you have to sit down and watch this guy play golf. And
Yeah.
like he definitely was like a reason like, too like for me to like I want to play because. It's
Yeah.
like Woods. You just want to hang, like you want to be like you want to wear the Sunday red when you're like
Yeah.
like a kid
Yeah.
or like do something like just kind of you idolized him, but like,
Yeah.
like you said, it kind of opened up the game more and like
No doubt.
and the guys now too like Justin Thomas and Rory and they're kind of putting themselves out there more to kind of like
Yeah.
enjoy like speed. Like they do that thing they just did that thing. What was it on TNT? The match.
Oh,
where they had
yeah.
Tiger,
Yeah.
Spieth, and those guys
Yeah.
on there, and that's fun. Like you kind of get to see a different side of it.
Exactly, and it'll like I said, I think it gives people a comfortable entry into trying something that prior to was, you could only play golf through a country club.
Right.
I mean, just think about the state of Rhode Island. I mean, besides a place like Triggs and Cranston and a few other places, there's a lot of private golf courses around here.
Yeah.
So if you're a Rhode Island resident or whatever, and you're just trying to start to play the game,
Yep.
there's not a ton of options even still, but there's more, and there's easier ways to get into it. You
Yeah.
know, so that's one thing I hope continues is private golf courses are great, but I hope there's more public golf and more entry into the game and more comfortable ways for people to start playing the game.
Yeah.
Because that's important. And it's funny because obviously COVID, for as terrible as it was, it got a ton of people into the game because it was the only
Oh
thing
my
they could
God.
do.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
so open.
And
yeah.
golf had its boom and has kind of continued that boom.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a good thing.
You're right.
So,
Yeah. I was playing out in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
Like in March, just like going to
yeah.
like Wood River or something, just like anything that was open, just go hit some golf balls
Yeah.
and play. Yeah.
There was literally nothing else to do. I think it's going to continue to transcend too with it's the TGL or it's the that Tiger and Rory are coming out with
Yes.
next January. It's going to be like
I didn't know.
stadium golf
It's gonna be
indoors,
indoors,
on a
yeah.
simulator, but it's going to be like people can go and watch it like they can go and watch a basketball game.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So it's going to be super cool to see how that unfolds. The match has been a huge hit. Yeah, I hope the youth continues to. I know there's not really much of a youth presence around here, which I think there definitely could be. It'd be
Yeah.
cool to
Big.
kind of try and explore that
Yeah.
actually, because I think like the first tee or something along those lines around here would be a very good thing to introduce kids to get into the game.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I think that's it for questions for now. So we'll
Yeah.
get a word from our sponsor, and then we'll hop into. Mike's gonna stick around with us, and we're gonna talk some sports and talk about what's going on in the sports world and everything like that, and we'll jump back into it.
Welcome to Vintage Cigar Lounge, the place where you escape to, not from. A place where your cigar options are limitless. A place where friends come together and bond over the finest cigars and drinks. A place where your selected few can retreat to and enjoy premium cigars, great conversation, and your liquor of choice within the privacy of our private rooms. Looking for a place to escape to? Our doors are always open.
Get back into it. All right, that was a word from our sponsor, and now we're back. So now we're going to talk some sports topics and some news that going around the world, around the sports world, along with, we'll talk a little PC basketball too, because I see
Nice.
you got the
Like
PC,
that.
the PC
Awesome.
shirt on.
Could do that.
Yeah, but let's start with the golf world. Some interesting stuff that happened recently with Rory McIlroy and Patrick Reed. Patrick Reed throwing a golf tee at Rory because Rory wouldn't shake his hand, and Rory threatened to give him a lawsuit or something. I don't know what happened, but
little trolling.
yeah.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's funny because the whole Live PGA Tour thing, I see both sides of that.
Yeah.
Because I think that, it's easy for us to play sidelines here and say, oh yeah, I wouldn't take the money. Every single one of us would take the
Oh
money.
yeah.
And if
That's life changing money. Like
yeah, and I don't think people realize like how much of a grind it is to make it to that level. There
Right.
are guys like Rory and Tiger and JT that are just not misses and they're
Yeah.
gonna make money, but other than those top 50 guys, they're all fighting for paycheck. They're all paying for their own flights. There's a lot of stuff that people don't see behind the scenes that golf is different than other sports.
Right.
And whether it was going to happen or not, I think most people would say it wasn't going to happen. The tour made some really good changes to help those guys out, like giving bonuses to guys that
Yeah.
keep their card, paying for expenses, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that all became because of the live
I know.
competition.
Yeah.
Competition breeds innovation.
Right. Yeah.
And the tour had that, unfortunately, a little bit of that stuffy feel to it.
Yep.
And, the live is trying to change a little bit of that. But, when you get into the specifics of the Reed and McIlroy situation, I'm 100% on McIlroy's side.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Patrick Reed has once a cheater, always a cheater, especially
Yeah.
in golf. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the one thing you never want to be labeled as.
Yeah.
Reed's been caught multiple times.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's not many people that have a great word to say about him in his personal life either.
Yeah.
So, when whether it was on Christmas Eve or not, that's beside the point. When you
Yeah.
subpoena one of your colleagues, right, essentially, and you're attacking their lifelong, journey and what they've accomplished, because just like Tiger, Rory has taken the tour to another step. JT's
Yes,
taken it to another
yeah.
step, right? Maybe not from a revenue standpoint, but from a perception standpoint.
Yeah.
You can't expect a guy to just be thrilled with you when you attack that, right? And Patrick
Yeah.
Reed did that. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what Patrick Reed was trying to prove there, and that's a really tough situation. I get it, but I also think it can be used as fuel for, viewership and like as a, a fan of golf. Like, how cool would it be to see the Live play PGA Tour
That's
in
what-
a Ryder Cup?
Yeah.
We talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and it would be a no-brainer if you're asking me. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to create a legitimate rivalry,
Yeah.
if there's one bad thing that I think has come from the tour is these guys are actually too close. You know what I mean? There almost
Yeah.
needs to be a little bit of animosity between players at times because you need a rival.
Yeah.
Tiger became that rival just because he was so good that people wanted to see him lose because they
Right.
were tired of seeing him win.
Yeah.
So, and even Brooks Koepka in that little short period of time became the major villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is good for the game of golf, a little bit of animosity, but in the end, like if we're calling a spade, like Reed is just a terrible role model for the game.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I don't
yeah.
want guys who are 12 years old saying, well, Patrick Reed cheated, let me just roll my ball in the fairway, or let me,
Right.
test the sand with my wedge. Like, stop it. Like,
Yeah.
that's not how the game should be played, and he's lost a ton of credibility, and now he's just losing more. So,
Yeah.
I don't know what he's trying to prove.
Yeah, to go off of that too, like Rory totally took his game to a new level when he became the face of the PGA versus Live, I feel like, and he kind of took the reins from Tiger to
Yeah.
be able to do that, and then he just exploded with the level of play that he's been playing and keeping up now.
Yeah.
I didn't look at the tournament they're playing right now, but I want to say that at one point they were supposed to be paired together. Are they paired together today, or?
No, so unlike the PGA Tour, the European Tour or DP World Tour, whatever it's called now, they hold the rights to pair their guys based upon. It still goes by where their standings are, but the way it works on tour and even our events in the RIGA and USGA, it's order of finish. So,
Right.
Yeah.
for example, if there's 3 guys tied for the lead and they're playing in twosomes, the guy who posts first goes in the last group. The guy who posts second goes into that
Yeah.
last group, and then it sets again.
Yeah.
According to the PGA rules, like they would have been paired together, but the DP World Tour separated them. They also gave a pretty good juicy pairing though. It's Stenson and Donald are in the same group.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Because of that, because of the
Yeah.
the mix up, they're in the same group, and anyone who's not familiar with that is Stenson was going to be the Ryder Cup captain,
Yep.
and then when he took the live money, it went over to Donald. So
Yeah.
there's a little bit of animosity there.
Yeah.
And I think the third guy, whoever it was it Hatton? It might have been Hatton or somebody else. they posted on Twitter a funny like meme of the Simpsons guy going back into the hedges because he's the third guy today, and he's like, yeah, I'm sure there'll be nothing to talk about in our threesome today. You know what I mean? So those types of like little rivalries aren't bad for the game.
No.
So we'll see how it all shakes out. I mean, eventually those two are going to cross paths, and those guys on Live, you know, there's a lot of people that want to discount how good they are. If you're telling me Dustin Johnson's the 40th ranked golfer in the world, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
So they need to figure out the world ranking system, because guys like Reed, whether you like him or not, guys like Dustin, whether you like him or not, they belong in these Masters, the U.S. Open, any big events that are on quote unquote neutral, terms away from the tours need to be playing.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's good for golf, by the way. Anyone who thought the Masters was not going to let those guys in is out of their mind.
Yeah.
How juicy would a final pairing be of Dustin Johnson and Rory in the Masters?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Why would the Masters give up that potential viewership and that attention to their tournament because of loyalties to the tour?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And, for their TV partners. Do you think CBS wants that? No.
Yeah.
CBS wants eyes on their TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a money.
So,
it's a money. Like
100%.
that's a money grab.
And it's
too.
good for everybody,
But,
too.
Yeah.
Anyone who pretends otherwise is lying. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to also talk about too, because you had other golfers kind of like poking fun about it. Like I think it was Kyle Marikar and Max
Homa.
Homa. Yeah, Homa just cracking jokes about like they tweeting back and forth between each other. I mean, what do you think about guys that just kind of like those guys like Homa and those?
I think it's great. Again, it's a back to like we were talking about earlier. It allows people to feel more comfortable with the game of golf and a little bit more on par with like how you treat your buddies at home when you're playing a Nassau against someone.
Yeah.
And that social media presence in the way that they're kind of allowing people to show their personalities is good for the game.
Yeah.
And it takes away from the perception that this is a stuffy sport that, a bunch of old dudes are watching on TV on Sunday afternoon. That's not how it is anymore.
Yeah.
It really isn't. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. We talked about last week too. It is going to be interesting how did people out of the top 50 that were Live even get an invitation how does that work now with the world ranking system being the way it is and everything being divided? It doesn't make too much sense to me. I know past winners and stuff, but other than that, like if you're outside the top 50, you gotta qualify to get in, correct? So I don't understand how that worked, but I am glad that like you can't keep a Cam Smith out of a major.
No, definitely not.
Of course not.
And I don't know. He's probably my favorite person that it went to Live, but just because of how cool he is, like
Rockin'
anyone
mullet.
rocking a mullet.
I mean he's a great
awesome.
personality.
Yeah.
I mean they're gonna have to figure something out, because as of right now, obviously, the exemptions that exist in the tournaments are gonna hold. So you win the Masters, you're exempt for life. You win the Open Championship, you're exempt until you're 60, I think.
Yeah.
PGA I think is for life as well. So you can't take away those, and you can't take away someone's chance at qualifying for a Open without it being an Open.
Right.
So, those guys that do fall out of the top 50 are going to get kind of screwed a little bit. But I hope that they're willing to have the conversation. What's really interesting about the world ranking stuff is a bunch of journalists and people are complaining, well, it's not a 72-hole event. And it's like, that antiquated thinking is exactly what you don't want. And we see it at the amateur level. If we don't play a 54-hole event, it doesn't count toward Wagger.
Yeah.
And then and Wagger made some changes, but even those changes aren't really reflective of how good a player is.
Yeah.
Because if I'm applying to 20 tournaments a year and I'm getting into 0, how do I ever get an opportunity to then take the next step?
Right.
So, I like the idea of making the game more open. I get that you can't have Live guys playing in PGA Tour events. There's a conflict of interest.
Right.
But besides those events, I just think you have to open the rankings up more and be realistic about, estimating how good a player is.
Yeah.
Whether it's using the new technologies of strokes gained or whatever. Like I said, you can't tell me with a straight face that Dustin Johnson is the 40th best player in the world. It's just not. It's not realistic.
No, definitely not.
No.
That's someone that's like he dominated the PGA for a while, and then, and still a great golfer. And,
Yeah.
How can you drop him down that
Right,
low?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but I would love, like I think what you brought up, would love to see a Live versus PGA. Like, how would you not want to
It
like?
would be unreal.
Yeah.
It would be awesome.
Yeah, cash.
I
it
mean,
out, yeah.
And the Ryder Cup will never go away, but the President's Cup, who gets up for that? Like, from maybe the players do because
Yeah.
when they get in the moment, it's a really big thing. But
Yeah.
from a
Yeah.
viewership standpoint,
It's not.
go poll 1,000 people. Would you rather see Live versus PGA,
Yeah.
or would you rather see the United States versus the rest of the world minus Europe? And everyone's gonna sit there and go, I want to see Live.
Live. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, imagine Rory versus Reed again.
Yeah.
You know,
The
like we
singles
saw
match.
in the
Yeah.
Ryder Cup, in
Right.
the singles match
Yeah.
for Live on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean, who's not signing up to watch that?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I know it.
So, we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of golf, Rahm is on an absolute tear.
Yeah. Yeah.
He cannot miss right now, so it's going to be interesting to see the final rounds today too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Did
didn't
they
want to
do
go
that
against
because
the
of
playoffs.
the playoffs.
Yeah, they did that because of the
I was
playoffs.
wondering. I was like, Wednesday, I'm seeing Sam Ryder be in the lead, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my god, it's starting today.
Yeah.
So that'll be great to watch. I think
Yeah.
that'll be a great battle for, and I know Sam, Ty, and Bobby are close with him. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool.
It really is cool.
to see that, and shout out Good Dog Seltzer, Ty and Bobby.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that
Sam's
sponsorship's
sponsor.
paying off
Yeah,
this
yeah.
week. That left
So-
shoulder's worth some real good money this week, guys. You know, that's pretty good. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be great. I mean, Rahm, I don't know if Sam can hold him off, but Sam is playing unbelievable this week, so should be a good duel.
It's a
coming
win-win
down.
for him. I mean,
Yeah.
regardless, he's going to have a great finish,
Right.
which is good to see. I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about the guy. And then when you talk about if he does win to beat Rahm, I mean, there's no one's going to take anything away from him.
Yeah.
And not only has Rahm been playing great, but I think he's won his last 2 events at Torrey. He won the U.S.
I think
Open,
so, yeah.
and then whatever was last over there. Was it this event last year, whatever the case
Yeah,
is?
yeah.
So when you put that into perspective, it's crazy. But to even put Rahm into perspective, it was pretty cool. I saw a stat the other day. It's like, and it puts our games into perspective too.
Mhm.
I think they said his last like 23 or 22 rounds on tour, his handicap would be a plus 13.
Yeah.
And people look at us as plus handicappers and they go, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "You guys don't understand
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
good they are." Now, even if you say we're both plus 3s,
Yeah.
that's 10 shots.
Yeah.
Every round, we'd lose to Rahm by 40 shots over the course of a tournament.
Yeah.
Like that puts
It's
it
a-
into
it's a
perspective.
lot,
Yeah.
yeah.
And what was crazy is I saw that stat was combined with Tiger in his stretch in 99 and 2000. Tiger went 2 years on tour with a plus 14 handicap.
Yeah.
So
That's
you
crazy.
think Rahm's little stretch here is the good, and you're like, Tiger did that for 2 years and he did it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just. It's unbelievable.
They're in like a.
They're in a different world.
different
And people don't
category.
realize
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's just. It's
It's
ridiculous.
They make-
sickening. Yeah.
They make it look so easy when you're watching
Yeah,
on
right,
TV,
yeah.
and you're like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, like I'd love to just be able to go out and
Mhm.
hit like a.
Especially,
Yeah.
especially Rahm, he's so powerful.
Yeah.
Like, he is just like an ox.
Yeah.
And he does it with a swing that 99 out of 100, teachers would go, "Okay, we got to rebuild
Yeah.
this thing. This is not sustainable," and it clearly is.
I love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love his
Yeah.
swing.
It's really cool.
It's so unique and it's just so powerful and he's a robot.
He's
I
yeah,
mean,
he's
Yeah.
he's the definition of a robot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just like all those guys.
And he's
are.
got a fun personality
Yeah.
too. I mean, he's poked some jabs
Yeah.
back and forth. I mean, he's under the spotlight. Being, I don't know what he's ranked in the world, but I mean, I think if he wins this week, he's close to being one again, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So, I mean, he's kind of poked his head in there too, which is good because I think his perspective is, listen, why are we bashing either side? Like,
Yeah.
we just need to. Golf needs good golf. Like,
Yeah,
whatever it
exactly.
takes. Like, I get it from both sides. So.
Build the
Yeah.
game. Yeah, build the game either way.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. That he's been playing well. So we'll hop into some. We'll talk quick NBA news and then we'll jump into the Super Bowl. But NBA Jason Tatum voted NBA All Star. I mean, he's been playing MVP level this year. He took it a whole
Yeah.
different step. I mean, what are you guys' thoughts on Tatum?
I'll let you start. This is your realm. Basketball's your realm.
I think I think he's unbelievable. I think when he first started, he was getting kind of a little bit he was getting hated on.
Yeah.
And I think that he's an extension of Kobe Bryant in a lot of ways. Like, I know he trained with Kobe when he first started to get into the league, and I think that he's just kind of picked up where he left off. Like, a lot of his moves go hand in hand with Kobe and
Yeah.
ultimately Michael Jordan,
Jordan, yeah.
because
Mhm.
that was Kobe's replica basically.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah, I love watching him play. He brings a lot of fun elements to the game, and plus the Celtics are playing well, so it's kind of a double whammy at that point.
Yeah.
So.
I'd like to see Brown get in too, because he's been playing good basketball too.
Me too. I mean, he is like, he's hand in hand with Tatum.
Yeah, I
Like,
was gonna
last
say,
year in the finals, Brown outplayed Tatum.
Yeah.
And if Tatum played up to his standards, I think it would have been a much better series.
Yeah.
And I think this year it's probably, they got to be one of the favorites to do it this year.
Yeah.
because
Definitely,
the
yeah.
Warriors aren't playing as well as they were last year, so I would love to see them in the finals again and actually get a taste of what
Yeah.
the next 5, 6, 7 years are going to be like if they can stick together and their contracts work out.
Yeah, I mean those two. I mean, there was a lot of people that wanted to break those two up, and I
Yeah.
just never understood that.
Yeah.
I don't think Danny Ainge, the way he drafted those two guys is
Yeah.
so underrated. I mean, people forget Danny Ainge traded back to the 3
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
and
I
got
remember.
his guy.
Yeah.
Markelle Fultz is coming. He's played better this year. He's
Yeah.
had some stretches, but I mean, no one in their right mind would ever take Markelle Fultz now
Yeah.
over Tatum.
Well, Philly
Yeah.
messed
He
him
did.
up.
Yeah.
Poor guy. I mean,
And-
well, not poor guy. He's
Yeah.
making millions, but
Yeah, and I mean that's also part of drafting a guy is you don't want to draft a guy that's got that fragility, so to speak, in their game, right? And Tatum
Yeah.
clearly doesn't have that.
right.
And Tatum was 19 when he came into the league. There's a maturity level,
Yeah.
I'm sure, that comes with that. And ultimately, though, Tatum's going to be judged on how many championships he wins and how
Yeah.
he performs in the finals. I mean, I defended Tatum when he didn't play great in the finals last year, just because I think people forgot really quickly how well he played against Milwaukee.
Yeah.
To win Game 6 on the road out there,
Yeah.
and then follow it up and make it to the finals,
Finals,
right?
Yeah.
You have to give credit to that guy. But now, with the best team in the NBA, arguably, because they're the number 1 seed and they'd have home court throughout,
Yeah.
you've got to defend that and eventually back it up with a championship, or you kind of fade into oblivion a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah,
I mean, Kobe has 5, Jordan has 6. Those guys don't have them by accident. It's because they went out and won them.
Yeah.
So you got to do that at some point.
Right. And wasn't Lonzo Ball in the same draft too? He was the second pick.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
It was
Yeah.
Bolt's Ball and then Tatum that
Yeah.
got picked, and then Tatum obviously. Is
And I
just-
think Brown was the 4th pick, maybe?
Brown was the 3rd pick too.
Okay,
for
Brown was the
Cat-
3rd
and then
pick,
I
yeah.
think he might have been in the same draft class as Simmons. So I think Philly had Simmons and then
Yeah, which I mean,
yeah.
Simmons was a good pick,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
even me, I would still take Brown over Simmons.
Yeah.
Oh my
I
God,
mean,
Yeah.
Simmons drives me.
yeah.
insane.
nuts.
Yeah, there's something.
I mean, he fits the quote unquote modern game where that's like kind of positionless basketball, but
He
Yeah.
doesn't score.
no.
He doesn't shoot.
I want a guy who can close out a game.
Yeah.
And that's Brown has shown that he can.
Yeah.
Except the other
Simmons-
night.
Simmons,
Missing those free throws.
Yeah.
Simmons does nothing for me. I don't know how you can be 6'9" and handle the ball the way he does and not. I mean,
Get to the basket.
I don't know what his plus minus is, but you got to look at that. Like, it may be good, but he doesn't do anything but rebound and pass the ball. Like,
No, in the playoffs you got to play defense, and that's the
Yeah.
other thing. Like Tatum and Brown are really, really solid defensively.
Yeah.
And the regular season's 82 games. There's
Yeah.
a lot of you get bored out there, whatever.
yeah,
But in the playoffs, that's going to pay dividends. Those
Yeah.
guys. So,
Yep.
It's gonna be awesome. All right, let's get into the Super Bowl picks there. Super Bowl picks. And as Mike referenced earlier, he is a Cowboys fan, so
yeah.
want to get your thoughts on that. I'm a 49ers fan, as I mentioned before, but like want to get your thoughts on that game and then what your picks are for the Super Bowl too.
Yeah, I mean, the game was ugly. I mean, I think, it's hard to defend Dak in that moment, but at the same time, I think so much pressure is put on QB in general.
Yeah.
And they still have 21 other guys playing around,
Yeah.
11 on defense and 10 other guys on offense, and could he have played better? Yeah. Is he the reason they lost?
No.
Yeah. I think he was,
Yeah.
but I'm also not going to sit here and say, you got to trade Dak. We never have a chance to win a Super Bowl with Dak. I mean, there's a reason why they've had more success with Dak over the
Yeah.
last couple of years than they have had without him. I know people point out the small stretch that Cooper Rush played, but the defense was lining up like 12 points a game in that
Yeah.
5
Yeah.
games. Like, you can't, that's not sustainable.
Yeah.
So, but San Fran, like, they're built to win in the playoffs because they keep things simple and their defense is really good. I mean,
Yeah.
to ignore the fact that San Fran's defense was dominant last week is just silly.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really, really good, and I think they're going to give Philly a lot of trouble because Philly likes to play a lot of the same style that San Fran does. A lot of short passes, a lot of different
Yeah.
run
Right.
options, a lot of different stuff like
RPOs,
that. So I'm personally rooting for San Fran because I hate Philly. But also, like, I think it's a good story with Brock Purdy. Like, I think that's a pretty unique situation.
Unbelievable.
And,
yeah, crazy.
I mean, again, I don't like Philly, so it's pretty easy. On the AFC side, I'm hoping to see Joe Burrow, break through and win a Super Bowl, or at least get to another one. But it'll be interesting to see, like, how Kansas City reacts. I mean, I think Cincinnati's beat them 3 straight times
Yeah.
at Arrowhead, which is pretty crazy. So we'll see. I mean, either way, it's intriguing. I mean, I think the 4 best teams are left. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I don't think Dallas is better than San Fran, especially on the road. I think a lot of people love to hype up Dallas. Like I said before, there's so many Dallas fans, and then anyone else who's not a Dallas fan hates Dallas.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just natural that they're gonna get, the blunt
Well,
of the impact when they don't win. So,
Yeah.
but in reality, I do think San Fran's the better team. So.
Yeah. Parsons is a beast. I just want to he literally picked up the offensive lineman
Yeah.
from 49. McGinley, or
Yeah.
I can't. He literally picked him up and threw him on the ground to
Yeah.
get to the. He's a monster. So that
Yeah.
was a good draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the funny thing. Like, I say this all the time. So, a lot of people don't know this about Dallas, but they have a guy who's the head of personnel, Will McClay, who's done an unbelievable job drafting for Dallas. I mean, you could argue over the last 15 years is who's drafted better than Dallas,
Right.
and they've gotten nothing out of it.
Yeah.
So, again, my blame always goes to the coaching staff. Like, not a huge fan of McCarthy, although you can't take away he's won 12 games in a row, 2
Yeah.
years in a row. But Jerry Jones just needs to go. Unfortunately, like, I do think that, especially in the NFL, you look at even Belichick, when you're GM and coach or you're owner and GM,
Yeah.
that's not always a great
Good
combo.
combination.
Yeah.
Just stick with one. And I wish, for Jerry's sake, I wish he would just be the owner. And, from a GM standpoint, now they've cornered themselves again.
Yeah.
Zeke's contract makes no sense.
Yeah.
Dak was always going to make good money, but his contract could have been less, and they'll have to restructure it now.
Yeah.
But those are the things that, as a GM, you have to do a really good job if you want to sustain success or ultimately win a Super Bowl. I
Right.
mean, I hate to admit this, but like Philly just went all in, and they're reaping the benefits of
Right.
doing so.
Yeah.
So San Fran went all in by going to get McCaffrey.
Yeah.
So, but Dallas isn't even in the position to do that.
Yeah.
They had to go out and get T.Y. Hilton, who was okay for Dallas for a couple weeks, but you don't want to corner yourself into that spot of having to go out and get T.Y. Hilton, who's 33 years old as a
Yeah.
receiver,
Yeah.
versus where San Fran can go get McCaffrey in his prime, or Philly can go get A.J. Brown in his prime
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
help out. So, that's where Dallas' success will ultimately,
Yeah.
be failure is right there.
Right,
Those
yeah.
types of things. So.
Now, do you think that this offseason, with how everything unfolded with Odell Beckham Jr., you think they're still gonna kind of pursue him to go to Dallas, or because that was pretty.
Yeah.
Those footages were pretty
Yeah.
severe,
Yeah.
honestly.
I mean, I'd stay away from him. Forget all the personal stuff. I would stay away from him because he's an older receiver coming off an ACL.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at what happened to Gallup this year. He tears his ACL last January. They got him back, and he was not the same.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
No.
horrible this year.
Yeah.
And he may be fine next year, but I'd personally rather see Dallas trade away some picks to go get a guy like DeAndre Hopkins,
Yeah.
if they can. A guy who's still in his prime, who, give up the picks. This is the sure thing. I mean,
Yeah.
Dallas did it a couple of years ago with Amari Cooper, and it paid
Yeah.
off. I was really disappointed they let him go,
Yeah.
especially for what they did.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping they do something like that. I'd hope they stay away from Odell. I think Odell would have been this year, if he were healthy, a good rental.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Play him to the end of the year. I would have rather had him over T.Y. Hilton.
Yeah.
But to say that you're going to sign Odell for 3 years, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'd stay away.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we got another Bengals 49ers pick.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
That's 3 for 3.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I hope we're right.
Yeah, I hope so too. We'll find
And it's
out.
funny, before the playoffs, I actually picked San Fran and I'm drawing a blank here. San Fran and Buffalo.
Buffalo, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, Buffalo got to stay out of the spotlight because Dallas lost.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think they're probably the biggest disappointment
Yeah.
because very similar to Dallas. Dallas has ruined the primes of Romo and Dak back-to-back now.
Right.
Yeah.
And Buffalo seems to be kind of losing their grip with Josh Allen.
Allen.
Because Allen will be good, but again, you don't win on your own unless you're the most elite QB out there, which is probably Mahomes.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
those guys can maybe win by themselves, but to think that there's 10 guys in the league that can do that, it's not realistic.
No.
Yeah.
You know, I think Brady kind of ruined the league because everyone was just like, well, if you have Brady, okay, Brady's the best football player to ever live.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you can't compare everyone to Brady. Brady won with nothing, and it defied logic.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, it'd be really interesting to see. I think Buffalo and Dallas are the two most intriguing off seasons because
Yeah.
from coaching to personnel on the team to having quarterbacks in their prime, whether you think Dak is a top 5 QB, top 20 QB, he's the worst QB in the league, he's there. I mean, it is what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's capable of playing well. So, same thing with Josh Allen. They've got to figure out a way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
Buffalo.
Burrow and Mahomes aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the other
exactly,
thing.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
the NFC feels more open for the next 10 years.
Yes, it
the
does, yeah.
AFC
it does.
is everything's getting tighter.
Right.
They're gonna battle it
Yeah,
out.
that's
for-
what-
I mean, even
Yeah.
the Chargers. I mean, Herbert. Everyone wants. What did Herbert do to lose that game? His team created 5 turnovers and they lost. I mean,
Right.
you're gonna blame Herbert? I think he threw 4 touchdown passes. And he threw for 300 yards.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, could he have had a better last drive of the game?
Yeah.
Should have never came to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That team will be back.
Yeah.
So there's a lot in the AFC.
Yeah.
That's-
Speaking of TB12, just come home for one or two more.
yeah,
years.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think if we can get him, we just got Bill O'Brien. We can get DeAndre Hopkins. I think we have pieces to kind of go off of. I would love to see it. So,
Patriots
I mean,
are well positioned.
You're just
Yeah.
gonna wither away down. But I also like Mac Jones. I
Yeah.
I also really do enjoy watching him play. I think they need to open up the playbook for him a little bit more. And
Well, he
but
needs
his
to be
work
surrounded.
ethic-
He
Yeah.
needs to be
Good
surrounded
job,
by
yeah.
weapons. I
I
mean,
know.
name a receiver on New England.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
they
I
are
mean, you just
not
can't.
that good. So
Well, that's the thing with Belichick. It's like he had Brady, and he could just put
Yeah.
like these guys
Yeah.
in certain positions around him, and Brady would elevate their game,
Yeah.
and they knew where to go. And I think now when you have, I mean, he still did a great job with second-year quarterback and Mac,
Yeah.
and you got to the playoffs last year. But like, I think they're missing that. Like, they need a couple, like, give them
Yeah.
some weapons to throw to every once
Yeah.
in a while. Like, that's the thing. I think Bill likes to not spend money on.
And in my opinion,
wide
I mean,
receivers.
I think you could argue that he's drafted well at times, but I
Yeah.
also don't think over the longevity of his career he's drafted well. I mean, he's hit on a couple guys, obviously Gronk and Hernandez
Yeah.
and guys like
Yeah.
that, but from an offensive standpoint, when's the last time he's drafted a receiver or a weapon that you've gone, oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Sonny
You know.
Michel, the running back, that's about it.
Yeah.
But,
And it was a short stint.
Yeah.
Because running backs just don't last. That's
Right.
That was always my argument with Dallas is I love that they drafted Zeke. I hated that they signed him. Those are two separate items. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I gave Dallas credit for drafting him, but you don't sign a running back long
Yeah.
term.
No, I
No.
know it.
They get beat up.
I know it. Yeah.
Well, that's what Buffalo's missing too. They need a running back. Buffalo's very all like throw a big play and that's it, and that's how they win games.
Yeah.
And they don't have a running game. And
Imagine
that's
Buffalo with McCaffrey.
well, that's what they were supposed
Yeah.
to get him. And
Yeah.
San Francisco came in and swooped.
That could
Yeah.
have been the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I think saved San Francisco this year because they didn't have a running game. Elijah Mitchell went out,
Yeah.
and then they obviously Jimmy G was playing. He was playing pretty well. Good game manager, but
Yep.
I think having McCaffrey and all those weapons now for Purdy's kind of opened up, like
Yeah.
to let him to
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
just be, just play his game and not have to worry about making
Yeah.
a play that he needs to make a play because he's
Yep.
got what he needs.
Yeah, he is playing so free. Like
Yeah.
he walked into a really good situation. He
right.
just needed to be able to control the game and perform, and
Yeah.
he's done it. So, I mean, they're so good.
I hate to
They
say it, it's a
are
lot
good.
like Brady.
Yeah.
It
Brady's
is.
situation in
Yeah.
01
Yeah.
when he stepped in for Bledsoe. He didn't have to do a ton.
Yeah.
No.
Now he blossomed into being the best ever, but
Right.
his first couple of years he was a game manager.
Yeah,
I mean
yeah.
that changed over time, but
Yeah.
his first couple Super Bowls, I mean he wasn't, a stat machine.
Yeah, right.
He had
yeah.
times where he was,
Yeah.
but
the fourth quarter,
Right.
he just came alive.
Fuck,
That was
yeah.
those drives to kick the field goals.
It's like
That's
the
where
clutch, the
yeah.
clutch gene just like kicked
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
And that's where Burrow reminds me so much of. Like
Yeah.
that guy is cool as a cucumber.
Yeah.
We mentioned it last week, and I
Yeah.
know I keep going back to it, but it's just like he never withers away. He lives for the moments, and
Joe Cool.
he's just so good. Yeah.
Joe.
So it's gonna be a really good AFC and NFC championship
It
game
is.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah, I'm a
For
little,
sure.
Yeah,
Philly's not an easy place to
No.
play. That's the
No.
only.
Yeah.
That's a big issue.
I'm a little nervous.
Yeah.
I always come in tight. I always keep saying like I never get my hopes up anymore. Just like my teams, I've had some good teams. Like my favorite teams have all like made like either playoffs or championships and right on the cusp. And I'm
Yep.
like, can't get hyped anymore. I need one win. That's it.
Yeah,
yeah. But I want to hop into college basketball. Obviously, you're a PC. Obviously, rocking
Yeah.
PC gear, and we talked a little bit that you've been going to PC games. What do you think about PC? Everything that they're doing, they have a tough. I mean, they played Villanova today. We're filming on Saturday, and then Wednesday they're playing Xavier, who's 13, and I think Xavier is top of the Big East, right?
Xavier right now is 9-1 in the Big East.
Yeah. I mean, what's it like to? First of all, to see PC kind of like the past few years make a step, and then also to see how they're playing this year too.
I mean, it's just cool, like how much Cooley changed that program. I mean, I had season tickets when I was a kid when Welsh was there, and then through the Keno years, I moved to Florida at the beginning of Cooley's tenure, and then obviously he took them to that next level. But when I was a kid, and even through high school and college, I never would have imagined that PC could end up where they are now at a national level, where they're getting the recruits, they're creating a buzz nationally, whether it's through the Taylor Swift song or it's through them making the Sweet 16 run last year and everything else. I mean, he's built a program now versus he had a good year or two, which is what Welsh did, right?
Yeah.
And to do it at such a small school is really cool, but he's just the example too of what like hard work and that like the perception of the program, how quickly things can change in life and everything else. I mean, he's at times, I don't know if he's the best X's and O's coach. I mean, there's people that could argue against it. I don't really pay attention enough to say whether he is or he isn't. I mean, he's had success.
Yeah.
But he's a great motivator, and he's done a good job too. I mean, half of being the PC coach is being a politician in a sense, right? Like, is understanding your crowd, the base, the students, how to work with the media. I mean, the second Cooley retires, he'll have a job on Fox.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's just got so much charisma. He's
So
just
good.
an awesome guy, right? So it's cool to see a program I care so much about, even as a URI grad, right? Which is kind of ironic. But, to see like them have such a good reputation and him represent the program so well. And as a fan, I mean, going to the games, the dunk, the amp, whatever you want to call it, I'll always call it the dunk.
Yeah.
It's just, it's generational. Like, there's guys that, like, my parents' age would say, it's the Civic Center.
Yeah.
So I get it, but, their success there and how fun it has been to go to the games is awesome. I mean, I never would have imagined that. I mean, when I was in high school, I think there was like 3,500 to 4,000 season ticket holders. Now they had to cap it because there was too many.
Wow.
I mean, it's gotten to the point where, like, I tried to move my seats this year. I couldn't, because there's so many people that are there. So, to see what he's building, and hopefully whenever he does retire that it sustains that success is cool. Because of all the sports, like, I follow college basketball probably the most. And it's the question I always ask myself, would I rather see Dallas win a Super Bowl or PC make a Final Four? I think I'd rather see PC make a Final Four. Like, I think there would be something gratifying about being able to go to the games. Like, last year I traveled to the NCAA tournament. It was a blast.
That's awesome.
So to think that you can do that, on a yearly basis is cool. So I guess we'll see what happens. But the Big East is really, really solid. The best thing they ever did was go to an all-basketball conference. Because it took away the football aspect and the chase of money and what people wanted to see. So, if they can get Xavier on the road, they have a legitimate chance to win the Big East again, which is also crazy to think about. But that is not going to be easy.
That Big East, man. I was just talking to one of my good friends. Him and his wife are big UConn fans, so she's a big UConn fan. He just kind of like fell into it, and he was messaging me about buying tickets to the Big East games, and he's like, "What do you think? Like, what day do you think I should like? What do you think they're gonna fall?" Like, and I'm like, "I don't know, dude. Like, they are so like they just beat the hell out of each other. That Big East, they just like they dominate each other like so much, and like it's just such a good bat. Like, I wish Syracuse stayed and like like we could keep having those games, like those,
Yeah.
like, keep the old Big East together, because those were just so much fun. Like that 6 overtime game against UConn,
Yeah.
and but having the Big East, it's just an unusual basketball conference where they just beat up each other, and I mean the Big 12 is like that too now. You got Kansas and Baylor
Yeah, I
too.
mean,
Yeah.
the Big 12 is undeniably the best conference.
Yeah.
So it's, it's hard because you look at the Big 12 and you're like, well, they're having success with basketball and
In
football.
yeah.
But, next year they're adding Houston and UCF.
Right.
So they're going to come in for basketball.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see if Houston can maintain the level they're at in the Big 12.
Sure.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see if UCF can even win a game
Right.
in the Big 12,
Right.
right? So you got to watch yourself. Like they're in that perfect sweet spot right now,
Yeah.
but as they start to rebuild their conference, it's no different than when the Big East added USF and I'm trying to think like Cincinnati, and it was
Yeah.
like they had some Cincinnati had some success in
Yeah.
basketball, but when you start adding the USFs and they can drag down your conference a little bit
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they take away from, when you have a 16-team conference, there's a lot of teams that really don't belong. Where, everyone makes fun of DePaul and Georgetown right now,
Yeah.
but DePaul's still in Chicago and they still compete. They beat Xavier.
Yeah.
Xavier's only losses to DePaul, and then Georgetown. All it's going to take is one coach to come in there and just rebuild that.
Right.
Yeah.
Ewing
Right.
doesn't belong
Well,
there.
no.
I think that it was a fun experiment for them
Yeah.
after John Thompson left, but they need a basketball guy who can
Right.
recruit and coach.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like Ewing has had trouble, obviously, with X's and O's in games. It's pretty ugly.
Yeah.
And then he's had trouble keeping players.
You're right.
Yeah.
He
And-
lost Mac McClung and all those. He had a big recruiting class coming in,
Yeah.
and they all left after that season.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, think about 10 years ago if you told me the Dunk was going to sell out every single Big East game and Georgetown was going to have 3,000 people at a game,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be
It's
like, no, you're crazy.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So things can change quickly.
Yeah, and any given night, one team or the other can win. That's the great aspect of the Big East.
Yeah.
I love what Cooley's done. I've been a fan. Obviously, I got to play against him, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just he's a great motivator. He's great for the city. Growing up there and then becoming a coach and bringing it to a national level.
Yeah.
And the last 2 years, he's overachieved.
Well, I think
By far,
yeah.
last year for him to win Coach of the Year
Yeah.
with what he was given, and then this year with the Bryce Hopkins being able to pick him up, it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, two things for me stand out with Cooley is the first thing is he's owned the transfer market.
Right,
He was
yeah.
the first guy to figure the portal
Yeah.
out, and
Oh my God.
he's pretty much hit on everything. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
there's been a few guys you say, okay, maybe this guy didn't fit or
Yeah.
this didn't work, but he's nailed almost every single one.
Yes.
And what he has now is that luxury of a Bryce Hopkins going back to, say, a kid from Kentucky that wants to transfer next year and say, hey, pretty good over here, why don't you come?
Yeah.
Or an Al Durham who came over from Indiana and him saying, hey, to a guy who's in the Indiana program now, hey, go play for Coach Cooley,
Right.
this
Yeah.
is going to work
Yeah.
out. And then the other thing that I've really noticed this year, which has been cool, is he's done a really good job, in my opinion, maybe others don't agree, of kind of adapting to the players that he has.
Yeah.
Last year, his team was completely different. They were
Right.
built on a system. They had to run perfect sets. They had
Yeah.
to run a lot of flex offense, a lot of old school stuff. They had
Yeah.
a different team. This year, his team is much more athletic. They've got guys like Devin Carter and Bryce Hopkins who can create for themselves, and he's
Yeah.
running more of an NBA offense. So,
Right. Yeah.
4 out. He's not running the pick and roll offense as much with, when you had Nate Watson. Nate Watson was one of the best guys I've ever seen in the pick and roll.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you run a little bit less of that because, Croswell and Moore aren't really those guys.
Yeah.
Right.
And he's done a good job adapting to that.
Yeah.
So you have to give him credit too, in that sense of he's adjusted to the players he's had, and even this year, people were losing their minds when they lost to St. Louis early in the year, and I think they were 4-3 or 5-3 at that point. I
Yeah.
said, give it some time.
Yeah.
You're giving every other coach in the country time.
Yeah,
Why are you
yeah.
not giving him? And then now you look at it, and everyone's like, "Oh, Cooley's the best." And I'm sitting there going, "The season's very, very long.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to let that's one of the negatives of the transfer portal is that you have
You have to
to
get-
let your guys get into the flow. So
Yeah.
Feel each other out.
And that's what the non-conference is for, to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
able to figure that out. So once you get into conference play, I'm not gonna lie, the beginning of the year I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
is
they
going
were
on
lost.
over there?
Yeah.
yeah,
Especially after last year. But you are right. He does adapt to his players. Like even when he had Chris Dunn and Henton, like they ran a flex offense. They ran, and I was like, wow, like they had spurts of it kind of being more loose, but this year they're much more loose, and it's awesome to see. I mean, you have to adapt to your players. Every
It's a
year's
totally
gonna be
different team.
Right.
I mean,
So.
everyone was dogging Jared Bynum at the beginning of the year, and it's like, Bynum did not become a bad basketball player.
No.
He had to get used to. I mean, he literally, for the 2 years he was at PC prior to, he had Nate Watson.
Yeah.
Nate Watson was the perfect guy with 12 seconds in the shot clock. He just ran through a set, it didn't work.
Yeah.
Here, I'm going to throw him at the top, and I'll run something off a screen.
Right.
Right.
Right? Can't do that right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So it's it looks different. It took Bynum some time, and then
Yeah.
of course he gets hurt, which stinks. But
Yeah.
you'll notice that he's going to be much more comfortable in the offense now than he was in November.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's part of it.
Yeah. It's all part of building up for March.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that's the
yeah,
other
yeah,
thing.
that's it, yeah.
That's one thing that really hit me last year going to the tournament is you work all year long, right, to get to the tournament. And you literally walk into this arena, you have 30 minutes to warm up, you play your game, you either win and you move on, or you lose, that's
Go
it.
home.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
that's
a
it.
2-hour window
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it all builds up to. So you're, like you said, you're trying to get into March with
Yeah.
your team playing good basketball and understanding this, like the scenarios that they're gonna run into.
Yeah.
I mean, the famous Cooley stat is he's won like 72% of his games that have been within 5 points.
Right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Hurley's 10-29 at UConn.
Yeah.
That's the
I'll take
You're
Cooley.
doing-
I'll take
Yeah.
Cooley, and
Yeah.
I'll take what he gives his players to perform at the end of games versus
Yeah.
what Hurley's done.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to just in practice practicing situational
Sorry,
awareness.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Walsh, we did that in college nonstop, and we ended up winning the conference championship
Yeah.
the year I played for him. And I think that's the difference. Just little nuances that you do throughout the year that build up to be able to do that when come March.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that's what's the difference between winning the Big East and losing at the beginning of the year to St. Louis, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's even UConn, when they were the 11th seed, what was it, with Kemba, they were an 11 seed,
Yeah.
and they run through the Big East tournament and run through the
NCAA
NCAA tournament. Like, are you kidding me? They
Yeah.
win 11 in a row?
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
Yeah, I don't think there'll ever be that feat ever again in college.
No,
basketball.
like that
No.
was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I go on YouTube sometimes and just watch
Yeah,
that
me too.
whole
Yeah,
run,
yeah.
and it's like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Are
And
you
they-
kidding me?
And they went on a stretch too. I mean, everyone remembers the Syracuse game, and then everyone was that year? No.
No.
No, that was a different
No,
year. No,
yeah.
sorry, the Pittsburgh game with
Pittsburgh, yeah.
cardiac Kemba, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Other than that game and like 1 or 2 games in the tournament, they didn't just win; they beat teams
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Like
I
it
know.
wasn't. They really did face a lot of adversity.
No.
Jeremy Lamb was
I mean, it was nuts.
lethal.
Freshman. He was a freshman, and then Kemba Walker just like he
Yeah.
was at another level too.
Yeah.
And he was in that tournament. Like he just took his team, put
Yeah.
his team on his back.
It literally gives me chills,
Yeah,
like
it-
thinking of it,
It's,
because
it's wild. Yeah.
like every time around tournament time, I just go watch it. It's like
Yeah.
an 11-minute clip, and it's like, oh my god, like what they did was unbelievable.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
And
But-
PC's coaching staff too. I mean, like Coach Jeff Battle too, the
yeah,
assistant
Battle's
coach.
huge.
Yeah.
Battle's worked with some great like Chris Paul, and like he was at Wake Forest for a while, and then, like,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
brings that. I think that experience too, having Coach Battle.
Yeah, I
there,
mean,
too.
obviously I'm biased. I wish Walsh had been able to stay at Providence. Like he
Yeah.
had a great opportunity to go work for Patino. Why not, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, he needed to kind of branch out too. But
Yeah.
the staff that Cooley has, like Cooley's just extremely lucky that none of his guys have been poached out.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Battle, I think is at that age where I don't think he really wants to be a head
Yeah,
coach.
yeah.
So it's a perfect scenario. But like, he does have other guys on that staff that have done a really good job who have
Yeah.
been there for a really long time. And what's nice to hear about that staff just in general is every guy has a role.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's recruiting or whether it's game planning or whether it's in-game decisions, like they have a really good balance. And
Yeah,
I think, you know, I think too. I'm biased, but I think Cooley and everyone else in that staff got some good benefit out of Walsh being there because
Yeah.
Walsh brings a different view. I mean,
Yeah.
what is he, 5'7" white dude,
Yeah.
who when you look at him on the street, you'd be like, what's he do for a living? You're like, he's an accountant or he's something.
Yeah.
And he's a good basketball coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a good mentor. He's really good mentally. I mean, we didn't get a chance to talk about him a ton, but like he's brought a lot of stuff to my golf game that he unlocked the pieces. There's a
Yeah.
couple pieces that needed to be unlocked, especially mentally, and he was able to do that.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's able to do that with basketball players too at the same level just proves how good he is
Yeah.
mentally, how good he is just as a coach in general. Forget basketball, just X's and O's
No,
stuff. It's
yeah.
Life
Just-
coach.
But
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, that's everything. I think that's just been great to have you on the show. We'll have to
Yeah,
get you on
thank you.
around NCAA basketball.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
It's fun actually talking about stuff other than golf.
Yeah, yeah.
I like talking about golf, but it's fun to kind of branch out into some other stuff. Like, as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about other things other than just golf
Yeah,
itself.
Yeah, we could
So,
do a
yeah.
nice NCAA tournament preview of you or something like that. Come
Yeah,
down,
yeah, that'd
have
be
some
awesome.
cigars and we'll
Yeah,
talk about
I'm
that.
never
It'd be a lot
passed
of
that
fun.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah,
Thanks so
thanks a
much.
lot for having me,
Yeah.
guys.
Thanks.